Hello and welcome to Plot Hole Repair, where I dissect movies and TV series to show how they could have been patched to make more sense. I'm just looking to make minor tweaks, not wholesale changes. My goal is to make as few changes as possible, nothing that would have resulted in major changes to filming or the budget. And of course, I will mention things that happen at all points in the film, so spoilers aplenty. Today we're going to be talking about the very controversial Star Wars: The Last Jedi. A movie that's divided audiences on whether it's absolute garbage or completely watchable. But even people who enjoyed the movie acknowledge that there are a few things in it that could have been done better. A few things like... Vice Admiral Holdo is the purple-haired woman who begins to lead the Resistance once Leia is incapacitated. Quite frankly, this makes very little sense. In a movie that's very dense with characters all fighting for screen time and three main plots going on that are all competing for your attention, we're being asked to care about yet another new character with no backstory or discernible personality. Unless you count Disapproving Mother. She does that well. It would have made more sense to put in a character that at least some of the audience would recognize in this role. This would give her final scene much more impact. Perhaps a character that is present at the start of the movie but unceremoniously dies off screen? A character that people have been quoting for decades?
It's a trap!
A character that's been loyal to the Rebellion and the Resistance since the very first trilogy? Admiral Ackbar. I'm talking about Admiral Ackbar. If he were in this role, his self-sacrificing maneuver at the end would have mattered to many more of the fans than Holdo's did, as she's simply a character we do not know and have no reason to care about. I know Laura Dern is a good actress, but that doesn't mean that with a whole, 4 lines, we're going to care about her. But whether you change the character in the role or not, there is another serious issue that needs to be addressed here. Holdo hiding her plan from Poe for what appears to be no reason at all. He asks multiple times and gives her a chance to explain herself before he mutinies, but she still keeps her mouth shut. Why? To teach him personally a lesson about patience and taking orders? The Resistance is on its last legs. Everyone is upset and panicked and needs reassurance. By keeping her plan from him, a plan that he would have understood and probably gone along with, as it wouldn't have interfered with him attempting his own plan as well, all she does is incite more panic and does nothing but cause problems. But it's in the movie because Poe needs to be less hot-headed, a trait we didn't even see from him in the first movie, so it seems to have been tacked on in this movie simply to give him some character growth. Assuming you want to keep him hot-headed, since changing that aspect would require an entire rewrite of a third of the movie, and I did say I wanted to keep my changes simple, this is an easy fix. When he's facing her, have him not give her a chance to explain herself. Or himself, if you accept my change to Ackbar. This does a better job of showing off how hot-headed Poe really is, and it makes it seem less like the Resistance leadership are incompetent. Speaking of incompetence, though... So, most of Rey and Kylo Ren's plot in this movie revolves around them force-timing each other, and this seems to have been Snoke's doing, to try and lure Rey out and try and get her on his side. But he also states that when he was training Kylo, he knew this would result in someone of equal strength rising on the light side, because apparently the Force balances itself naturally? Which actually could make more sense in the canon than it initially sounds, but that's a ramble for another day. This makes his plan to turn her to the dark side come across as a little bit self-defeating, doesn't it? If turning her to the dark side is just going to result in another set of light side Force users popping up to counter her and Kylo again, then he seems to be rebuilding the light side, which he helped destroy when he had Kylo wipe out Luke's trainees. So, if he knew that the Force naturally balances itself out, and that turning her will just result in more powerful Force users rising against him, what's the point? And that's not actually something that I think needs to be answered in this movie. Not at all. Hell, I don't entirely think it even needs to be answered, period. But he plays a huge role in the plots for this and The Force Awakens, and yet is killed off after talking about a plan that doesn't make much sense. But if I don't believe we need to know his plan, but his plan is stupid and that's the plot hole, how should it be fixed? Well, simple. When he's cut in half, have a close-up of him smirking. That's it, nothing else. No extra backstory tagged on, no change in the outcome or the dialogue, nothing. Just a smirk. A smirk that implies he saw this coming. He knew Kylo would kill him. That was part of his plan. This would make Snoke's death feel threatening instead of silly and pointless. This leaves you wondering what he gets out of it, what his goals were. Did he plan for Kylo to kill him and take control? Did he know Kylo getting angry and taking over would result in Luke's death, and that was important for some reason? Who knows? But that's way more interesting than wondering what the f*** was the point of that. Speaking of which, I feel like I'm picking on too many of the female characters, but if they're not well done, then they're not well done, female or male, and Rose's entire plot has so many holes in it, it's hard to know where to start. So let's be boring and start it right at the beginning. Her very first scene where she catches Finn trying to run off to save Rey. She says she's there stopping people from taking the escape pods and abandoning the sinking ship. Frankly, this feels evil. The Resistance, the group that's supposed to be about saving lives and people having autonomy and freedom, is stopping people from saving themselves when they've lost nearly their entire fleet? Really? Maybe they're not just fleeing to save themselves. Maybe they hope if they escape they can send help somehow? Or that if the entire Resistance dies there, then that's a problem? Maybe? Or hell, they just don't believe in it enough to sit there waiting for death when there's literally nothing else they can do because their leadership won't share their plan, so as far as they know, they're just drifting through space waiting to die. No, I am not going to drop that. Anyway, this could be explained by having her go on a little rant about how her sister gave her life for the Resistance. She is not going to let anyone else do any less. This makes her seem a little bit psychopathic, but it was literally hours ago that she lost her only family and she's still reeling from it. She's dedicated her entire life to this cause, and she's lost the only other thing she has. So now this is all she has left. She's no longer got the moral high ground, but that's fine. She's a person. People are allowed to not be perfect, even in the movies. This would also explain why she has to drag him to the brig herself rather than being able to call guards. She's an engineer. She shouldn't be the one tasering people, and she shouldn't be the one dragging them to the cells. Now she has a reason to be doing both. And even more reason to side with him rather than ratting him out when given a chance to go along on the Save the Fleet mission. Which in my version she would have made up a reason to tag along rather than having a real one, because she doesn't trust him to not just run away as soon as he gets the chance. Again, this gives more depth to her character, rather than having her be one-dimensional, seemingly just there to make all of the characters around her look less moral by comparison. Giving a character some depth is what makes them memorable, and gives people something to relate to. She needs some change in the Canto Bight scenes as well. If we're being honest, I know most people want this section entirely rehauled or removed, but we'll stick with just tweaking. You can keep her moralizing about how deplorable rich people are. It's not compelling and it's trite, but it's not a plot hole. What is a plot hole is why when she sees the Fathirs, the giant horse dog aliens, she releases them because she identifies with them from having grown up a slave. Which is fine, until she then sees actual slave children but does nothing at all to save them. I understand that they had her encountering the slave boy to show off the power of the Resistance as a symbol, and to introduce him for the tag at the end of the movie to reveal that he's a Force user, but it makes for a giant problem with the plot and her characterization. Why are the horse dogs even more deserving of being saved than the slave children? She wants to save them because they're slaves like she was, so why doesn't she try and save the slave children? You can use it as a metaphor for misguided liberalism in a movie with a lot of mixed political metaphors if you want to, but I choose to see it as a plot hole. And this is yet another very simple fix. One of two different ways. Either have her moralize about slavery, but then not notice the children until after they release the dogs and they're running away and can't do anything about it, or drop the moralizing and just have them releasing the alien greyhounds to distract from the cops and have her make sad eyes as she sees the little boy, maybe throwing him her decoder ring. We're nearly done with Rose, but I have one more major issue with how this movie dealt with her character. That is, when she saves Finn from knocking out the cannon and saving the entire remaining Resistance. While the movie frames it that Finn was wrong for doing what he did, she's a hero because she risked her life for a good reason and he risked his life for a bad one? Somehow? Yeah, he says that he's doing it to stop them rather than stating that he's trying to save all the people, but the moral distinction is a bit ridiculous, especially when this movie did just have Holdo kill herself and thousands, potentially even millions of First Order troops when she martyred herself flying into the Star Destroyer. No, this scene is here to continue to show Rose as somehow morally superior to everyone, particularly Finn, while also saving Finn's ass for the next movie and adding an extra wrinkle to the idea of a Rey-Finn pairing. Because love triangles. Love squares if you add Kylo Ren. I love Pentagon if you're one of the people who thinks Poe has a thing for Finn. This is a plot hole because, well, it just doesn't make sense as presented. Rose is all about the Resistance all movie. Suddenly this man she spent all of a few hours with, who she's developed a fangirl crush on, is worth letting the First Order kill the entire remaining Resistance? Why? Well, there actually is a good reason for it, but it's not the one presented to us. First, you have to acknowledge that from her perspective, she didn't even save his life. She just delayed his death. Without Rey and Luke coming to save them, they all would have been dead, and Rose had absolutely no way of knowing they were coming. So when Rose slams into Finn's ship, stopping him from blowing up the cannon, she's not saving Finn's life, only dooming everyone else. She had enough time to consider her actions. She knows the situation. She knows they're doomed. Especially being so close to the enemy line, Finn will be one of the first to die. So why the hell does she do it? Well, because she's selfish. And as mentioned before, she's still reeling from the death of her sister. Her sister was the only family she had, and it doesn't look like she had friends either. Or at least not many, or worse, none that survived the initial attack. She and her sister both looked at Finn as a hero, a symbol to show the rest of the universe that it was possible to win this fight. So when she sees him, and he doesn't live up to her expectations, she's heavily invested in sticking with him to try and make him live up to those expectations, to make him the symbol she needs, so she can continue to believe that her sister didn't die for nothing, that the Resistance is worth it. And then, after he did live up to her expectations, now she's about to have to watch him die too. A maximum of 2 days after her sister. She knows that what he's doing is necessary. She knows that she can't really save him. But she just cannot sit there and watch him die. She can't do it. So far, this all works with the movie as presented. Until she opens her mouth when he asks why she did it, and she makes it sound like she was stopping him from doing something evil. Somehow, because when he was charging the cannon, he said he wanted to stop them instead of saying he wanted to save everyone else. That means that unlike her sister and Holdo, suicide missions this very movie glorifies, Finn is doing it for the wrong reasons. So even though it would save everyone, he's not allowed, and she has to be the hero and save him. Or you could just have her crying in near hysterics that she couldn't let him do it. She just couldn't watch someone else die. She just couldn't do it. It would be a much more impactful scene. Take out the moralizing and put in genuine emotion. Put in heartbreak and pain. Again, give this character some depth instead of just being there to make the other characters feel bad. This movie is far from as terrible as some people would have you believe, but it is far from the best in the series as well. It's too serious for some of the slapstick humor, and there are too many jokes to take it seriously. But most importantly, there are plot holes that people just couldn't ignore. And while hindsight is always 20/20, many of them were easily avoidable. I hope you enjoyed my take on the story, and if you did, feel free to like and subscribe for more. And don't forget to comment down below with any suggestions for movies or shows to look at, any plot holes you think I missed, or if you think my changes would have created new plot holes.